Yes, this session is being recorded for everyone out there. Okay, we can begin now. Today, first of all, my name is Barbara Mojica. I am the Executive Director for NLCUP. I want to thank everyone that's here today with us, wanting to learn about your Latinx community, because everywhere across the country you have them. So thank you for being here. We have some great panelists here. I'm so excited to introduce them. And so I'm going to go in the order I see the screen. We have Gina McNeal from Border Credit Union. Gina, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself and what you do at your credit union, that would be awesome.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon. My name is Gina Perez McNeal. I am the Director of Financial Education for Border Federal Credit Union. I've been with the credit union for about 16 years, always in the financial counseling, financial education area. I started off as a HUD counselor. Back then we were a HUD approved counseling agency. And after a few years, we dropped the HUD approved counseling agency designation and partnered with Pathways and Inclusive. And that is the platform that we're currently using. But my background is mostly in financial education and financial counseling, as well as the all famous VITA program. I also run that program for our communities.
Thank you, Gina. And for the audience, at any point, you can use a Q&A to ask us questions, interrupt us, whatever. This is really a candid conversation that we're all having. So please feel free to send all your questions in. And we will try to get them answered as soon as we can. Next up is Ms. Alejandra Loeza. She works for Raiz Credit Union. Alejandra, if you can just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alejandra Loeza. I am the Marketing and PR Manager at Raiz Federal Credit Union in El Paso, Texas. I have been with the credit union for a little over 3 years now. And I've been in the credit union industry for about 8 years, and overall in marketing, doing various positions for 14 years. So I am responsible for everything in the marketing department that's dealing with the creative side. So the advertising, our sponsorships, media placements, all of our communications, our public relations, and so on and so forth. So we've just recently rebranded in July of this year. We were formerly TFCU, El Paso Area Teachers Federal Credit Union, and we're very excited to introduce this new brand to the community, not only here in El Paso, but obviously with partners like NLCUP to the nation. It's very dear, and we're very passionate about this new logo. So this ties in very much with our Latin roots, our Hispanic roots here in El Paso. So I look forward to speaking to you all about it.
Thank you, Alejandra. I am so excited to pick your brain on that rebranding, because that is a lot of work. Maricela, we have Maricela here from CUNA Mutual Group. And Maricela, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Maricela Castillo. I am a research consultant for a multicultural business strategy at CUNA Mutual Group. So basically what that looks like is that I do a lot of research within the multicultural spaces, so is the Latinx community, as well as African American, Asian, LGBTQ, different generations, kind of across the board. And I help everything from our credit unions to our internal work with product teams for life insurance. And I kind of just help to bring that multicultural perspective to make sure that we're helping to serve our members the best that we possibly can. I've been working with CUNA Mutual Group for about 3 years, and I've been in the movement. I started as an intern about 5 years ago.
Oh, that's awesome. This intern, huh? I need to pick your brain too. Just so everyone in the audience knows, CUNA Mutual Group is one of NLCUP's biggest supporters. So if you are supporting CUNA Mutual Group, then you know where your funding is going, because they do a lot for NLCUP, not only financially, but also with the resources that they provide NLCUP. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, great. So we can get started. The way this is going to work for the audience, I will ask them a question and they will all get to answers. They all bring different perspectives to this webinar. Even though like Gina and Alejandra serve the Latinx community. Their communities are totally different, and I'm so excited for you guys to learn what those differences are, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions that, you know, just because you're Latino or Latina, you have the same needs as everybody else in your community, and that's just not true, and we're here to debunk that myth. So let's get started. The first question I have is, what sort of partners do you all suggest are key players in the Latinx community? And again, I'm just gonna rotate the question as I see the screen. So Gina, can you give us your input on that?
Sure. So for us, we have plenty of partners in our community. And like you mentioned, we do serve mostly a Hispanic community. So I forgot to mention, we are in Del Rio, Texas, which is a border town with Ciudad Acuña, Coahuila. And yes, most of the population is Hispanic. However, that doesn't mean we don't have challenges on serving our communities. So a few of our major players, our major partners for us is definitely the consulados. So we partner with the Consulado de Mexico with the Ventanillas de Asesoría Financiera. We have with the Consulado de Mexico here in Del Rio, we've actually had a Ventanillas probably for the last 6 years. And then here just last week, we signed with the Consulado from Eagle Pass. So Eagle Pass is about 60 miles from Del Rio. And although we're serving the same communities, the same Hispanic communities, the way we serve them is totally different. And that's just getting to know who your target audience is, basically. We also partner with the Casa de la Cultura. So when you're looking at serving certain target groups, target the areas in which they come together. So for us, the Casa de la Cultura is although we're all Hispanic, it's a different market. It's a different group of people that we're servicing when we partner with the Casa de la Cultura. One of our most interesting partnerships is with Dismas. So if y'all are familiar with Dismas is a halfway house for those that are leaving the prison system or the jail system and are trying to reintegrate back into the communities. So we also partner with them and provide the financial education and the products and services for the credit union. So again, it's just identifying who those partners are in your community and the target market. And again, I'll reiterate that although the people that we're serving are mostly Hispanics, the needs are a little bit different. So you advertise and you market to them just a little bit differently. We also partner with almost all the nonprofit organizations in town. Granted, we're not as big as El Paso, but we do have a lot of organizations, and it's straight across the board. So we're talking from the booster clubs to the sports people, sports teams, with the kids, with the adults, because now you're putting your name out there and you're becoming a trusted entity for them because they see you and they'll come looking for you because they noticed that you were at X, Y, or Z event. So again, those are some of our partners, as well as a lot of the social service agencies. We partner with just about all of them in town as well. And it's for health needs as well as financial needs and things like that.
Thank you.
So it's a huge group.
Yeah, thank you, Gina. Alejandra, do you want to touch on that as well? Because I know Raiz is a different market.
Slightly different, I think. We're still a border town. We still serve majority Hispanics, Mexican Americans here at the border of El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. Most of our partnerships are based, just like Gina, on a lot of nonprofit organizations. We have a big partnership with United Way, and obviously they help fund a lot of nonprofit organizations across our city. We partner with the Community Foundation and a new foundation, the Underserved Community Foundation. They all have pillars to help our Hispanic community, support them with food, housing, financial education. Most recently, we partnered up with the Housing Authority of El Paso to provide financial education webinars to those residents in housing, government housing. These were markets that are usually they're not frequently approached by financial institutions to educate them, not just sell to them. So it's very important that we continue to partner with our local nonprofits and organizations, to include our city officials, elected officials, city council, government programs like our community development departments. Those organizations are always reaching out and providing aid to the Hispanic population. And so we try to be there at all of their events to be able to give that education to our underserved population, because a lot of that stems from our culture of mistrusting financial institutions. And I think that's an important topic that I will cover in a little while.
Yes.
But definitely just partnering with the community and being out there, being active, getting our name, into the forefront, so that they know that there is an institution that is there to help, not just to sell.
Perfect. So Maricela, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think so. You'll kind of see me throughout this webinar bring a little bit more of statistics from this mindset, as I don't work in a credit union. I'm not always seeing that member side. So kind of thinking through when we're looking at research, we know that the Latinx community is very community oriented. We want to see that we're connected. We want to see that we're building these personal connections. So I think any space that you have a partnership that you can have and build that personal connection with the community through the things that they care about, through culture and through language, all of that is always a fantastic place to start. And once you start in one area, you'll kind of see that if you're in one Latino-based community organization, they're probably going to know a whole bunch of other ones that you should be communicating with. And so it is all connected. It's this giant web. So getting started is just kind of like that focal point. And then from there, you just see all the different spaces that you should be connected into. Also, when Latinos are talking about their personal financial institution and who they should be helping, they want to see their institution give back. They want to see the community be impacted in a positive way. And when we ask them kind of like what was their number one place they'd like to see that you give back, education at 40% is the number one answer. They want to make sure that their community is staying educated in all different aspects, but it's extremely important. So that's another, when you're looking at partners, thinking about schools and different community sources that give education to the community as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, guys. We do have a question in the chat. So the way I like to do it is address those first, because I think, that's the audience. And so this is an interesting one. It doesn't have to do with membership, but how do you recruit Latinx employees to your credit union? Alejandra, I'll start with you.
La cultura, Barbara. We need to build a good culture in our own organization. So we know that Latinos are all about community. We're all about culture and heritage, and being in line with our own values personally and in the workforce is very important in order to recruit our Latin employees. We tend to hear a lot about how does this organization give back, or how do I fit into this organization? Does it really tie along with my moral values? So it's very important that we communicate that through social media or advertising, or just building that community culture and showing that your brand does represent those values that you want to recruit for.
Yeah, we have a very strong value system, and at least in my, I've seen it all over our culture. So definitely aligning those values. Gina, do you have anything to add to that?
I totally agree with everything that was said. As a result of attracting the Hispanic employees or staff, it also goes back to you serving the Hispanic community, because you have to be able to relate and to communicate in to communicate, period. I always share my funny story when I started working. Well, I think it's funny anyway. When I started working with the credit union. So if y'all notice the last name on the screen, it's McNeal. And the housing counselor that we had, she had been very successful at creating those community relationships. And she leaves the credit union, and then I come in. And I come in as Gina McNeal. And I don't know what happened, although she was excellent at her job, and she had established those relationships already. People were just not coming in. And I was like, what in the world? Like, I'm a nice person. I know what I'm doing. I blah, 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 you know, everything. And then it dawned on me that it was my name. It was my last name. So now anytime I do anything for the credit union, something as simple as adding Perez. My name is Gina Perez McNeal. And like they say, the rest is history. But it was just something so simple in our community that my last name wasn't working for me. But yeah, so that goes back into what we've already said, you know, as the relationship with the communities, that we have the people that are going to be able to communicate in the language that they prefer. And in this case, because I have an Anglo last name, they figured that I was not going to be able to communicate in Spanish with them. So keep that in mind.
Wow, that's very impactful, because I mean, you're Hispanic yourself, so you just know, like, your last name that has that much impact, you know, on people not reaching out because and I think it's more so a fear that you just won't get them, you know, that you just won't understand what they're trying to tell you, or the needs, or etc. So Maricela, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to attracting members and attracting employees, it's that mindset of intentionality and trust. Show them that you're intentional, show them that you care about the community, that you care about them as an individual, build that relationship, and improve it in everything that you're doing, in your work with the community, in your work with that, in your marketing, in every single aspect. That you should be showing that you care about multicultural spaces, that you care about the Latinx community. And when it comes to trust, I think a lot of people of color, and a lot of Latinx and specifically women of color, we have this sense of uncertainty of ourselves, and that imposter syndrome. Can I do this job? Is this a space that is welcoming for me? Is this where I'm going to be able to actually grow? And being able to show that you're trusting of the work they can do, and you trust that you're not going to be micromanaging them, you're not going to be watching over their shoulder the entire time or questioning their work, but trusting that you're hiring people to do the job because of their talent. I think that's extremely important, and something that has kept me at CUNA Mutual Group for so long is that idea of trust.
That's awesome. And someone just said they have a comment: having an effective DEI program enhances the Hispanic employee experience. And I mean, I know that we all on this panel, and including myself, can agree that you've left places simply because they just don't acknowledge your presence. And I think a DEI program is so needed. Like, it's a must now, you know, in every organization, just to make sure that your people of color and people from different communities feel accepted into the organization. Because one thing is to work for them, and then another thing is to be accepted by your workplace. So I'm going to move on to the next question. Let me put them up. Oh, I like this one. Ooh. How can we bridge the gap between technology and the Latinx community? I love this question. Alejandra, I'll let you take it away.
We were just talking about that earlier today.
Yes.
So I found a little bit of research that I'll share with you, Mr. Nielsen report, and they mentioned that 60% of our Hispanics in the United States grew up with the internet. So this assumption that our Latinos don't know how to use the technology is unfair. It's not true. A lot of them have mobile devices. As a matter of fact, one of the stats there on the report was that 99% of Hispanics currently have mobile devices as their main form of communication. That's almost every single person in the US that's considered a Hispanic. So we need to debunk that myth. They use technology just as much as any Anglo-American or any other race in the United States. And the only way that we can help them bridge that gap is just education, just teaching them how to use the technology that's available to them by their credit union. We're working on upgrading our online banking platform, but even with the pandemic, it forced a lot of us to do online services anyway. So a lot of that has already been adopted. At Raiz, for example, we're going into a hybrid model. And so we moved into ATMs in place of our tellers. And we educated our tellers and developed them to become our MSRs, which are member service representatives. So they can take time and help members with more complex transactions and leave those daily transactions to be done by the ATMs. There's still a little bit of a tech knowledge curve where they don't know exactly how to use the ATMs, but right now they're simple ATMs, so deposits, withdrawals, basic functionality. In the future, we do hope to expand those services and making them full service ATMs. But we have a concierge concept at the branch. So we have team members there available to them to show them that technology, show them how to use it. And later on, we'll be able to go into a 24/7 access of ATM. So a lot of our Hispanics work, they have to work 8 to 5. And that's usually when our credit unions are open for operating business. So we're trying to expand that and reach them when they need it, which is at any time of the day. So that's kind of how we're bridging the gap on technology for our credit union.
That's awesome. And I always tell someone back then told me a very impactful statement that, you not knowing English does not make you naive or dumb, for better words. And so if you are going to market to the Latinx community and you want them to use your technology, you need to hire translation services. We cannot bridge that gap unless we can read what we're doing. Gina?
Very true.
Definitely education. Strong believer of that. I think that's one of the ways where we are closing the gap between technology and our Latin community. We saw the same thing Alejandra saw during COVID. I mean, in our branches, everybody wanted to walk in before COVID. Like, we had tons of people in our lobbies day in and day out. Then COVID happened, and then guess what? They couldn't come in our branches anymore. So a lot of them started downloading and were forced to use the online or the mobile apps and things like that. So they can and we can, and it's been through education that we've been able to bridge that gap. But we have to provide that education again in their language of preference, because the other thing that we see a lot in our community is that they will come in speaking to you in English, but the minute you start the conversation about anything, then they're like, ¿me puedes decir en español? And then you have to make that switch. And by making that switch, again, to what Maricela was saying, you're building that loyalty and that trust that you care about me. You care enough to show me, and to show me in what I prefer, although I'm speaking English to you, or vice versa, because it's happened the other way around too. It's very important, definitely the education.
Thank you, Gina. Maricela, any stats, anything you can add on that?
Yeah, I think I agree completely with both what Alejandra and Gina have said. I think the number one thing I want to add is just this idea that technology is not where the gap is. The gap is in financial spaces. So we can talk constantly about how Latinos don't use technology, older Latinos don't use technology. My parents were on TikTok before I was, and they were showing me how to use it, right? So that's, when we think about that, it's not that technology is the difficult part. The part that's difficult is the jargon, it's the word choice, it's the language, it's the idea that financial knowledge comes with generational wealth, and that's something that our community is currently building. So all of that is like, we need to figure out financial technology, not necessarily technology as a whole. They understand how to work apps. They understand that portion. It's the word choice. It's how they function on an actual financial platform. That's where the education is coming into play.
Yes. Oh my God, I love all that statement. Yes. I'm like, yes, yes. Because, you know, my parents use Facebook, and the reason why they use Facebook is to bridge the gap between their family members in Mexico, right? And so currently there's no credit union where my parents live because it's such a rural place. But they have a bank, and the bank doesn't provide them an app in Spanish. So my mom every other day is going to the bank for simple stuff. And she's just like, I just wish they would do it in Spanish so I could just click, click, click like I do on Facebook. And I'm like, exactly, that's what I've been preaching. But moving on, there's a question in the chat. This one, I don't know if it applies to you all, but I'll still ask anyways. Maybe you guys have some knowledge. It says the Latinx community is 2 times as likely to have limited credit histories. What strategies, partnerships, and initiatives have helped improve the number of Latinx community members getting approved for the credit products they need? And so Gina, I'll let you take that one away, and then we'll move around.
Sure, this is one that's very dear to my heart. And it's tied into my financial counseling department, in all honesty. So we have developed several products that are specifically geared towards improving the credit history or the credit of our population. So we have things like the credit builder loans. We created a Save and Score Visa credit card program with the savings component to it, which that one, I mean, I'm just so excited about because we just launched it about 1.5 years ago, last May. And the way it works is that it's almost like a 99.9% guarantee that they're going to be approved, regardless of credit, regardless of anything. But it also has the savings component to where we're helping you establish, we're providing you with the education, because as we very well know that a credit card can either help you a lot on building credit, or it can also hurt you very quickly. So we provide that education to our members so that they know exactly what to expect when they're giving certain products. But on the other hand, not only are we helping them reestablish or establish their credit, but on the savings side, I mean, it's been tremendous. You know, again, we go back to the myths that we don't save, that all we do is spend, spend, and spend. Well, I can tell you that since then we've opened a little bit over 232 credit cards, and for the credit challenge, let's call it. And we have over $39,000 since last May in those 232 savings accounts that are tied into this credit card program. And on top of that, we've only charged off maybe like $2,000. So the risk is minimal. Again, it goes back to the education. Now it's the education of the products and that we're providing to them, but also in helping them establish or improve their credit situation.
Thank you, Gina. And I guess in my own perspective, I've been a loan officer before. I would challenge that credit union to be the one to give this person an opportunity, right? Because in this country, we've not had that opportunity, especially if you're undocumented. And if you just take the chance on them, I promise you the return will be a lot greater. Alejandra?
Yes, I wanted to talk a little bit about predatory lending because it is a big issue in our community. I'm not sure if it is with Border, but we have payday lenders almost on every corner in some streets. And a lot of what we've seen, a lot of our members and Hispanics here in our region, they tend to use them a lot for their finances. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They have a very low household income, and so they rely on these payday lenders to get them to that next check. And so they're always kind of behind on their finances. So we realized that here at Raiz, and we decided we needed to help them and change that. So we actually did a campaign this year that helped identify those individuals that had alternate financing somewhere else, so not through a formalized financial institution. And we provided them a pre-approved offer to try to get them to bring those loans or those higher rates that they usually get at payday lenders or other alternate financing down, so that they could refinance those with us. And so we gave them a really great low rate. That's just one way that we try to help this year, because we know that that's a big issue. Education of payday lending is also something that we work towards in our social media platform and our advertising efforts within our membership, because a lot of times they don't know. They don't even realize what they're signing on the dotted line for. And so we're trying to educate them to not go to those payday lenders, to come to the credit union, and we offer the credit builder loan as well. So that's something that helps them start building their credit by having a shared certificate amount kind of on hold. So they have about $500 saved, and then we lend them the money so they can start building credit that way. And we just released a new product called the New Start Loan. And this one is very important for us, because in our community, and obviously with all the immigration issues that are going on right now, there's a lot of Hispanics and Latinos that don't have access to credit or loans. And those applications to become a permanent resident or a citizen in our country are very, very high for them. And so obviously limiting their income and not being able to pay for that out of pocket, we've been able to create a loan for that. There's no credit score required for it. We allow them to borrow up to $2,000 so that they can apply and get their papers in order, whether it's a DACA application or a work application, permanent resident or citizenship, whatever they might need. And we're not even checking credit for that, because we know the community needs that assistance. And so we're able to provide that to them.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so awesome. And as a DACA recipient, I wish when I first got DACA, I had those type of resources, because I know my mom had to scramble asking actually for tandas. I don't know if you guys know what tandas
Yes.
are. There's 5 of us.
That's the original cooperative.
Yes. So for 5 kids, she had to get DACA, and you could imagine that expense. So thank you for that. Alejandra, I just have one quick question. What is your, I don't know if you know this, but what is your default rate on those loans? Especially those first opportunity loans is what I like to call them.
Well, we just started our New Start loans, those new opportunity loans. So we haven't had a default yet, but we're barely getting ready to launch it community-wide. We partnered up with our city community development department, and that's how we started getting the word out during citizenship fairs. So we have not yet, and we're hoping that we don't, because a lot of times Hispanics are very proud. Once you give them that opportunity, they are loyal. They will make sure that they make their payments, especially because you did allow them that opportunity. So I think, and I'm hopeful that that default risk is low.
What we find with a lot of our, I guess what you would call second chance products, is that the risk is minimal, because they will pay you back. They will pay the credit union before they pay anyone else, because they know that because you help them once, you're going to keep helping them. So they always want to be in good with the credit union.
Awesome. Maricela, anything to add? Because I have like 4 questions on the chat.
Yeah, I think overall, I just want to say, like, I love hearing when credit unions are doing things like this. When I get those questions that kind of come through of like, but what can we do? It's like credit unions are in the perfect spot to create products that are here to help our members, to help them kind of create and start their credit history, to really challenge systems that weren't always created or made for us. Credit unions are in the spot to kind of push us forward and to help our community. So create new products, create new payment methods or payment strategies, work with your community, because yeah, they're here for you. They want to make sure that they continue this relationship. They just want help along the journey.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. This is another great question from the audience. I actually want to know what you guys think about this one. Marketing / social media. What is your strategy to reach out to the Latinx community? Previously, by leadership, we weren't allowed to post marketing materials in Spanish. What is your take on this? Alejandra, I'll give that one away to you and then we'll rotate.
Yes, so we are now, especially because we just changed our name, but not just the only reason, we do serve all of our Hispanics. 80% of our population is Hispanic. And so all of our materials are in Spanish. They need to be. That's the only way that we can continue to communicate to them. We try to make sure all of our flyers, notices, important communication especially, is always in their language, because otherwise they won't feel that connection, that bond, or that trust with their financial institution if they don't understand what it is that they're reading. So I encourage you all to challenge that leadership decision. And if you really are trying to get into the Latinx and Hispanic market, that you really make efforts to provide the same information in both languages, because that's the only way that you're really going to get the true followers and get those members to adopt your credit union as their own.
Maricela?
Yeah, I think just starting off with the idea of social media and Latinx community, they post more on social media daily. They visit social media to find communities way more than any other community. And they're using popular social media and newer social media faster than anybody else and more than anyone else. So being on social media is so necessary when you're looking at the Latinx community, especially when you're looking at the growing communities and you're looking at Gen Z, millennials. When you add that language aspect to it, you have to understand that language is so important to the culture. It's how people feel connected. It's across different countries of origin and so many other things. The language is one of those things that really connects us. Even if somebody isn't somebody that speaks Spanish on their daily, like day-to-day lives, or if they don't speak it at home, or they only speak it at home, whatever that is, it's still like a nod to them, that you see them, that you acknowledge them and their culture, their history, their people. And so I will say that it is hard to kind of get that Spanish started if you're not in a Latinx majority community. Something that we did within CUNA Mutual Group is that we started within Hispanic Heritage Month. We started doing bilingual posts where we'd have the first part in English and the second part is completely translated into Spanish. And that was kind of helpful to get us started on that journey of like, people didn't know where to start. They felt like they did one Spanish, everything had to be in Spanish. And that's overwhelming, I think, for a community that maybe isn't Latinx majority. And so it's kind of just getting them started and acknowledging the fact that a small step is such a huge step for the Latinx community to be seen and to feel heard. So it's just getting started. It's a couple of posts that have Spanish words in there. Maybe it's Spanglish. Maybe it's having videos that are showing employees that are able to kind of express themselves in their natural language as well. I think it's really finding one place to start and growing from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those thoughts make me think of an experience a long time ago at Sephora when they started adding people of color because we couldn't get our skins matched to the right foundation, right? And it's like you say, it's such a small step, but it's such a huge step to feel like, okay, I can walk into Sephora now and make sure my skin matches to the right foundation. So that just made me think of that scenario. Gina, do you have anything to add?
No, I think a lot of it has been mentioned already, but definitely the language it's huge. It's definitely huge.
Awesome.
There's a lot of questions on the
yes.
page, so I don't want to repeat something that has already been said. But
I appreciate that.
Definitely the language. Yeah.
Real quick, this one, because by the way, for the audience, we do actively host I-10 webinars. So the I-10 questions, you can always attend the I-10 webinar specifics, but I'll go ahead and ask this question. Do you have or do I-10 loans or citizenship loans? And I think you, Alejandra, you've answered that. And Gina, yes. If you just want to say yes or no.
So we have not done any I-10 loans, but there hasn't been any demand for them here. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
That makes sense. And then we have a next one for Alejandra and Gina specifically, 2 questions. Do your credit union offer I-10 loans? We've already answered that one. And the second is, do you know how many referrals one happy Hispanic member brings to your credit union? Because word of mouth is a very powerful thing in the Latinx community. So Alejandra?
Yes, so we've experienced word of mouth is very, very important because one person, one member, whether they have a good experience or a bad negative experience with the credit union, will hear it more so on the negative side than we will on the positive side. But always when we do hear of that success story, it is so impactful because it gives that fuel even to our team members internally to continue to advocate for our members and to do what's right for them when they need it, not just to, you know, meet goals or meet objectives that obviously we're required to as well, but it's finding that heart. So word of mouth for us is very important. So we try to make sure that our members have that positive experience because we know they're going to go tell tias and tíos and their grandkids and so on and so forth. I mean, I have discussions with my family members all of the time, and it's always about what went well and what didn't go well. And then they go and tell other people, and hey, I heard about this, and my coworker said that, and is that true? And, you know, it's very impactful. So having that one success story can really help out your efforts.
Yeah. And I guess another thing that I think is often missed is how much us as kids do for our parents. So I'm doing a lot of research for my parents, and I'm like, you're going here, like, that's it. You're not, because I have already done the work for you. So I think we miss that a lot in the credit union space. Like the people of my generation, we are the ones educating our parents, you know? And so just bringing that back, like word of mouth. I mean, even though my parents might have not done all the research, I've done it enough to where now they trust me and they will trust Raiz or Border because I've told them to trust those institutions.
And that is so true. So we partner with the high school here in Del Rio, and we go in and do financial education. So what we find is that a lot of the high school kids send us their parents. And the parent will come in and say, my son, my daughter said that you were at school and that you said A, B, C, and D. Can you help me? And then from there, word of mouth, it keeps going and going, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have Celia, I'm sorry, do you have anything to add?
I do have a statistic. So when you're looking at why people choose the primary financial institution that they're choosing, Latinos actually say as their number one choice is family or friend recommendation.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love your stats. Yes. What docs do you accept for those second chance loans? If they don't have direct deposit or basically paid cash, what do you allow for those since there's no credit score needed? Whoever.
Yeah, so on the second chance loans for us here, direct deposit is a requirement. However, there are a lot of businesses still here in Del Rio that do not offer the direct deposit. So obviously an exception is made on those for that. And as far as documents, I'm not sure exactly what it is that they're referring to, like what type of documents. Can you all elaborate on that?
So for whoever asked that question, you can just type it again in the chat. Alejandra?
For our second chance loans, we do require them to hold their money in a share certificate usually, and so that it's more of a secured loan that they have to have, I guess. So whatever amount that we're letting them borrow, it's already saved in their share certificate, and then we release it obviously as they make their payments. So there's very, very little risk involved for that kind of loan. And then our new start loan, the documentation, I'm not too sure exactly, but I'm pretty sure they just require identification, like a government issued ID, or if they don't have their papers yet, matricula,
right?
You know, they just some form of identification, I think, is what they require in order to be able to lend to them, and obviously to have already a Raiz checking or savings account with us.
Okay.
And for us, our second chance loans are unsecured. So they're totally unsecured loans.
Perfect, thank you. Moving on to the next question. How do you reach new markets when your brand may not be as well known in those areas? What a great question. Sela, I'm gonna give it up to you.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to that idea of partnerships that we talked about at the beginning. If you're connected into the community of the Latinx community in any kind of form, and you show up in those environments, right? If there's festivals that are happening, if there are concerts, if there's education spaces that are happening, if you're in those community spaces, that's your number one ticket to kind of be spread around and the knowledge to be spread around in those areas. I think also it's just making sure that you are on social media, making sure that you are active and are creating those connection points. And we talked about word of mouth is extremely important. Word of mouth does not only mean in person, although that is a huge part of it. It is also that social media piece. If you can be shared, if you can be commented on and liked or tagged, that also helps out a ton, especially with the Latinx community. So, and having that Spanish language, once again, allows that to be shared and continue to be passed around a lot easier.
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit higher within that community. And then you can, you know, your employees are your ambassadors. So Gina, do you have anything to add?
So definitely, like she said, just be out there, be present where the people that you want to serve are going to be. Go to the events, go to anything that's related to that Hispanic community that you're trying to reach. So if it's the Mexican Americans, if it's the Guatemalans, if it's the Dominicans, if it's the Puerto Ricans, you know, you have to identify and be able to project that you're trying to help them and help them at the end of the day.
Alejandra?
Same as Gina and Maricela had mentioned, is just being active, getting your brand out there. I mean, just being present in person goes a long way. Having those conversations, showing that you're meeting them in their environment, in their community, where they need it most. So partnering with those nonprofit organizations that are assisting them, you know, to find housing, or the first time homebuyer program, or your city government, you know, if they're hosting any kind of financial fair or citizenship fair or anything like that, where you need to go out and meet them. They're not necessarily going to come to you, to your branches. That's the only way to create that brand awareness and start building that relationship and trust with the Hispanic community.
Perfect.
One of the things that we have here also is that with our leadership team, with our management team, we are, for the most part, most of us are part of the boards in the different nonprofit organizations in town. So whenever there's a need, it's my, you know, branch manager from X location that's saying, hey, Gina, I think you're involved in, are you able to help this person, whether they're a member or not? A lot of the times we are even servicing those that are not members, and eventually they come back as members. So it's those relationships that you have as well with the nonprofits and sitting on those boards, because now you know what it is. It's just another resource, another tool that you have.
That's awesome. That's really good perspective. I haven't even thought about that one. The next question, and I'm gonna give this to Maricela first. Where is a decent area to get Spanish supported documentation? Great question, by the way.
Yeah, so a lot of that, it depends on where you are in the country. And depends on kind of who is helping you with your products and whether or not they have Spanish documents. Another aspect that you can do is thinking about translations internally and how you can just have somebody that's on your team that can translate those documents for you, and making sure that everything is still regulated and can still be upheld in the credit union space. So that's kind of where I recommend.
We do our own translations in-house, and it just takes a team effort.
Alejandra?
We actually do a combination. So for the smaller tasks, we do them in-house within our own team, but we also outsource it. So we actually use translated.com. I think that's a great resource for translations. They have foreign language speakers for all countries out there. I think they serve 120 countries or 120 languages. So really great resource. They are able to target your translation and make it more of a transcreation, because we know that sometimes the English doesn't translate well into other languages verbatim. And so they really need to understand the essence of the message, and they're able to transcreate it for us in the region that we're in. So they have multiple Spanish language experts. So depending on what area of the country you're in, that dialect might be a little bit different. And so you may want to reach out to them. And they're very affordable. We've used them for quite a few of our communication pieces.
Yes, and that dialect thing, oh, it's so important, because my Mexican Spanish is not the same as the Puerto Rican Spanish, okay? So
Right.
please make sure you do some research on your market first before you
Definitely.
or say a bad word accidentally thinking this is how it's said in Mexico, and you think it applies to the Puerto Ricanos. So I have another question in the audience. Is there, for example, have a matricula and are here on a visa, but working and want to try and start their paperwork, what documentation would be allowed for them to come in and to do that? This may be a question for Alejandra's loan program. So Alejandra.
Well, we're allowing them to borrow up to $2,000. So they're very low risk loans at that point. We ask for proof of income for anything above the 2,000 mark if necessary. But this program is based on grant money that we applied for as being a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution. And so that grant money allows us to let our community borrow at low risk, because there's not a high impact on our financials, because we obviously have the funds available to cover the loss in case there is one. So there's very little documentation necessary when they apply for the loan.
Okay, awesome. Since you've answered that one, I'll move on to the next. Well, basically, they're asking what is that resources again. I will also link that resource once I send the thank you and the recording of this webinar. But Alejandra, just for the people in the audience, can you just say what resource you use for translation services?
Translated.com.
Perfect. And then let me move on to the next question. Oh, another good one. Do the same products that work for the average American work for the Latinx community as a whole? Celi? Maricela, can you take that one away?
Yeah, so I think it's a difficult question, right? I think you can say overall products, when it's created in this kind of cookie cutter way, isn't going to work for everybody the same way. And it's always going to need some kind of shift to it, whether that's more explanation, if it's walking people through it, or if it's really creating new products that are more helpful for that community. So with the Latinx community, I think there are tons of opportunities where new products need to be created in order to better fit the way that Latinos kind of move throughout the financial space. I think there's a lot of new opportunities for education, and there's a lot of opportunities to kind of build trust before they feel like a product is actually good for them. I think about like investment products and certain loans, where all of that kind of, at some point in your life, you may have been told that that's not meant for people like you. Whether or not that was through direct verbiage from people telling you, or if it was by being denied at a different point in your life. And being told that that isn't a product that you can have at that point. So I think it's a lot of creating products that look different, so that way there's a fresh face that you can kind of assert yourself with. But also just education and learning and growth and tweaking that needs to happen, because all of these groups, race, ethnic groups, generation, life stage, all of that has an impact on the products that you need to use. And so I don't think any kind of cookie cutter set product is always going to work best.
Thank you, Maricela. Alejandra, Gina?
I think it just goes back to getting to know your community and who you're servicing or wanting to serve with the products and services that you have is just who is your target market and what are their needs. So it's not just about, oh, well, let me create this product. It's actually going out there and figuring out the need of that particular community.
Perfect.
Yes, I agree, Gina. I think it's very important. I think products and services in general in financial institutions, I mean, they're necessary for any race, ethnicity, at any life stage, right? It just depends on where you're at in your life cycle to acquire one of those products and services and really understand the benefit and the advantage that those products and services have for me at the time, for example. So it's again, education. It's just letting them know there is a product available for their situation and having conversations with them. It's not an all one product fits all type of model. It really depends on that unique person's situation and being able to accommodate your products and services to that, being creative in a way that this savings account can function for something in your life. It's just a savings account, but you tailor it to them so that you really are listening to their needs. And it's still the same savings account, but because you're positioning it or marketing it a little slightly different, it'll make a big impact in their life because they'll feel like you're answering that need.
Mm-hmm. And we have a few more minutes of this webinar, but I want to ask a really important question. What is the biggest challenge our community faces, and how does marketing relate to it? So Alejandra, I'll let you take it away and then we'll circle around.
Well, that's a loaded question. There's so many challenges that we have, especially right now in the economy. I think there's a lot of uncertainty with what's going to happen next. There's a looming recession projected for us. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. And so I think our Latino community is going to feel that impact. It's already feeling it in the prices of everything. Everything went up. So financial pockets are going to be really, really hurt, you know, and so understanding that situation, because like I mentioned, our Hispanic community is usually, not always, but usually has very low income in their household. They have larger family sizes because we have a lot of kids, you know, and a lot of that is going to impact us as a community. And so knowing that as a credit union in your local market, understanding that they're going to need you a little bit more, teaching them how to save or budget now is going to be very important to help them face those challenges in the future, or tailoring your products, your loans to assist them during those hardships, maybe providing some assistance on the collection side, allowing a little bit more grace, you know, and empathy when they are going through tough situations in this new economic cycle. So just keeping that in mind, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we face. Obviously political, we won't get a whole lot into that, but that's a huge challenge too, that we need to understand and meet their needs, show them that we're here for them, and show them that we're hearing them, knowing what their needs are and providing that solution for them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Alejandra. What about you, Gina?
I ditto everything Alejandra said. I mean, there's a time of uncertainty coming up. We just don't know exactly how it's all going to play out, but this is an excellent opportunity for us as credit unions to identify what that need is once it gets here, and then more than anything, execute that need. Help them out, whether it's in collections, whether it's a small loan so that they don't go down the street to the finance company, because as I advocate for a lot of our members that need the help, it's like, if we don't give them the $500 loan, they're going to go down the street and get it. So,
Right.
and us knowing that the risk is minimal for the credit union on providing that small loan, why not? Because when you give them that $500 loan, you have them for life.
Mhm. Perfect. Maricela?
I think I agree with everything that y'all have both said. I just want to add the idea that unbanked and underbanked is a huge issue in the Latinx community. People that do not have a banking institution or financial institution to go to, they go to payday lenders, they go to Cash Now, they go to all these different places, or if they're at a credit union or a bank and they don't know that they could be having better services, they don't know that they can ask for conversations that'll help them actually figure out what products they can have, and they're underserved in that sense, and that they're there, they have the accounts, but they're not active, they're not talking, they're not having those conversations. And marketing can help so much in these spaces because it's about getting that knowledge out to them, about understanding that they have better options, they have choices that can help them achieve their goals. It's just connecting to them with the right lens. Latinx community is the most optimistic. 78% agreed with the statement, "I'm confident my life will continue to get better." 65% of Latinos agree with the statement of, "I want my children to achieve more financially than me." These are things that are core values in the Latinx community. If you can demonstrate how credit unions, specifically your credit union, can help them on that journey, that's how you connect them in. That's how you be able to help them on this journey and help overcome a lot of these challenges that we're seeing. It's kind of getting back to that idea of values that we talked about at the beginning. Getting connected on those core values allows us to really move forward in these spaces, and your marketing lens is what they see first. So really being able to show them that.
Thank you, Maricela. That was awesome. We have one last question in the chat, and I promise I will let you guys go. I don't want to leave it unanswered if it's just one. What do you look for indigenous partnerships that can help you successfully reach the Latinx community quickly, Alejandra?
We need to understand our markets in your GA, so your Google Analytics or your Google search. Really targeting your promotions that way is going to be very beneficial. So you're putting your name and your brand, your products and services in the eyes of the right audience. So understanding what those likes are, those demographics, is going to be important for you to be successful with your marketing.
Does Gina or Maricela have anything to add to that?
So I'm not in marketing. However, we did have a meeting yesterday, and our marketing and PR manager spoke exactly about what Alejandra is talking about. Getting to know your market, and following up.
Thank you.
I think in the digital space, especially, understanding who your members are, understanding what they're looking at your all of your analytics, making sure you're understanding what that means, but then also having those personal conversations. If you have a member that comes in and talks about your digital experience, ask them more questions, get that feedback, and take that back and kind of think through how you can continue to show up differently in those digital spaces and who you should be connected with to kind of help push it forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So that concludes the webinar for today. I am so happy that this happened. Alejandra, Gina, and Maricela, thank you so much for joining me today. NLCUP truly appreciates everything you guys do for the community. For the audience, please be on the lookout. We are having a webinar next month on DACA and the difference between DACA loans and I-10 loans, because people tend to group those together. So again, thank you so much to the panel. Thank you to the audience for being here, and I will send the recording of this webinar to everyone on the NLCUP membership. And so if you want to share it with some colleagues or people who are not members of NLCUP, please encourage them to learn and to join NLCUP. That is the first step to diversity and inclusion, and making sure that your Latinx employees have a safe space to vent and just to exist. So I want to thank everyone for being here, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
You too.